and welcome to a special edition of Paul on Politics at Westminster. Well, there's no doubt Theresa May caught the political world off guard this week with a surprise announcement that there is to be a snap election. Having repeatedly ruled out the idea, it seems she had a change of heart. She argued an election was needed to give a stronger hand when it came to negotiating a departure from the EU. So, in just over 7 weeks, we'll be heading to the polling booths yet again. If the announcement caught Conservative MPs off guard, it was nothing compared to the shock in the other parties. Kent's reputation as a Tory heartland was reinforced in 2015, and it's hard to see how their grip on the county will be loosened on June the 8th. Both Labour and UKIP have suffered from splits, infighting, questions about their leaders, while the Lib Dems have only a modest presence in Kent. First, Josie Hannett looks at how the political landscape has changed in the last 2 years.
Prime Minister Theresa May's announcement to hold a snap election caught the political world by surprise. Despite repeatedly ruling out an early vote, yesterday she changed her mind. Well, it's no longer a surprise. We'll be heading to the polling booths on the 8th of June. Here at Westminster today, MPs have voted in favour of the election. With Kent County Council elections looming in just a few weeks, are our voters tired of ticking boxes?
I think people are really excited by this election. It's a really great chance to talk about the kind of Britain we can build. You know, Brexit is part of that process, but let's look so much further beyond at the kind of nation that we can build, an independent, trading nation, great in the world once again. I think the sky's the limit on what we can do, and I'm so excited about that.
The last election in 2015 saw Kent become a true blue Tory heartland, with UKIP nipping at their heels. So what are the prospects for the parties this time round?
At the end of the day, we're here as representatives of the people. I have done nothing but listen to people's views over the last two and a half years, and that's what I'll be doing. But also it gives people an opportunity to question me as well.
I've never taken the electorate for granted in Canterbury and Whitstable. I will be making my pitch that this is a government which is firmly committed to maintaining the economic recovery we've achieved, committed to getting a good deal for Britain in Europe, and the other parties must make theirs.
One question which is yet to be resolved is whether former UKIP leader Nigel Farage will run again in South Thanet. He's mulling over the decision.
So if now Nigel Farage decides to actually stand or contest the seat, we think it's about even money to do that, but we make him 3-1 to actually win the seat. So in effect, last time round it was at the height of his fame. We feel that if he didn't win it last time, then Nigel Farage can't win it this time. And I must say, if I was going to invest some money, it wouldn't be on Nigel Farage to win that seat.
The pollsters have been way off the mark in the past few elections, but Kent MPs will be hoping the odds are in their favour on June the 8th. This is Josie Hannett in Westminster for KMTV.
Back in 2015, the Tories reasserted their dominance in the Garden of England, winning every single seat. But what are their prospects 2 years on? We spoke to Tom Tugendhat, MP for Tunbridge and Malling, and then to Helen Whatley, MP for Faversham and Mid Kent, about whether they think they'll still have a job on the 9th of June. Now, this sounds like it might be an election which effectively becomes a second referendum, as it were, on Brexit. Are you worried that domestic issues are going to get overlooked, things like the NHS, the crisis in adult social care, not getting much of a look at, and trains, of course?
Well, as you know, I mean, I've been very active on local issues in West Kent on any number of different things, including broadband. As you know, we've had several conversations about it, and particularly the rolling stock and the railways in southern and southeastern. As you know, southeastern franchise is now up again. So these issues are going to really, really matter to me, and they're going to really, really matter to people in Tunbridge and Edenbridge and Malling. So I don't think these are going to get overlooked. Of course, it's going to have a national question on Brexit, on the Brexit vote, but it's not a rerun of the referendum. The referendum is done. The Article 50 has been triggered. If we wanted to go back, we'd need to ask 27 countries and various regional assemblies and various European Union assemblies to reverse it. So that's not going to happen. What this is actually about is, who do you want sitting at the table conducting the negotiations for the United Kingdom? Do you want Jeremy Corbyn or do you want Theresa May? Because that's the choice.
Why is now a good time? Because previously the Prime Minister said a snap election would be disruptive and would lead to instability in the political establishment?
Well, I think the Prime Minister was right to quash speculation about whether there had been an election or not before, because speculation is the least helpful thing. The best thing to do is what she's done, which is call an election only 7 weeks ahead. So we won't have a long period of uncertainty. It's going to be a short, sharp campaign.
7 weeks is quite a long time for people who might already be fed up with politics and be suffering voter fatigue, as it were.
I think the time will go very quickly, and it's going to be a very focused campaign on what we want out of Brexit and about what leadership we want through Brexit and about getting strong leadership to make sure we get the best possible deal from the European Union.
Isn't that the danger, though, that we're having a general election which effectively to a lot of people looks like a second referendum on Brexit?
I think it's clear that we've had the referendum, so this isn't a question of Remain or leave.
But you know that politicians who supported Remain will carry on plugging away at that, and in the same way that Brexiteers will carry on.
Well, you say that, but I voted for Remain in the referendum, and now I respect the referendum result, and now what I will be campaigning for is for us to get the best possible deal from Brexit. I recognise we have to move on as a country. We are leaving the European Union, and what matters for my constituency is to get the best possible deal in the national interest, which will be the best possible deal for Faversham and Mid-Kent.
Well, we all know the Tories have got a fairly tight grip on the county, to say the least. Can you see anything but a more comprehensive victory than you had back in 2015?
Well, I hope that Theresa May will get a really strong majority and a really clear mandate from the British people, because that will give her a stronger hand in the negotiation with the European Union. So that's what I want to see, that every vote that supports her is a vote that goes towards us getting a stronger deal.
Now, you're going to tell me you're not complacent, but UKIP are in disarray, Labour split down the middle, Lib Dems starting with a very modest low base. There's nothing really there to threaten the Conservatives in Kent, is there?
I will be working hard, campaigning hard. For me, I already spend lots of time in my constituency. I already knock on doors regularly to keep in touch with people across the area. But I seize the opportunity to do even more of that in the next few weeks. I do wonder why people would vote for UKIP at the moment. We've had the referendum, we're leaving the European Union. What would be the point of voting for UKIP? To me, it would be a wasted vote. I know people who have previously voted Labour saying that they don't want to vote for Jeremy Corbyn. They can't see him as being Prime Minister, so that feels like a wasted vote. I mean, what's the point? And finally, for the Lib Dems, although I appreciate that there are some people who might vote Lib Dem because they're still the party of Remain and want a second referendum, the fact is we need the best possible deal from Europe, and you need a good deal for the UK with Europe, whether you have voted Leave or Remain in the first place.
Now, it's no secret that Labour has been in almost constant turmoil since the last general election. Current leader Jeremy Corbyn has been dogged with awkward questions about his leadership, and it's hardly the ideal starting point for a party 6 weeks away from a general election. KMTV's news editor Andy Richards spoke to Vince Maple, one of the key Labour figures in Kent, about how his party might fare.
So Vince, over the last couple of years, we've really had a huge amount of political stories. We had Brexit, we had Trump, now a snap general election. What have you made of it today?
Well, I think there's a few things to look at here. Firstly, from my perspective, like many people across Kent, they will feel lied to. The Prime Minister said so many times since she went into that post last year there would not be a snap general election, it'd be the wrong thing for the country. Suddenly, over her Easter eggs, obviously she's decided something different. And if someone can't be trusted even on a date, let alone how they're going to run the country, people have got cause for concern. So when you look at that kind of basis of why the election's happening, that we're supposed to be doing things in the national interest, I'm concerned this is all about party politics and nothing else. That said, we're going to have an election that will be confirmed tomorrow, almost certainly. All the main political party leaders have said that will now take place. June the 8th will be the day. And as you rightly say, we've seen a lot of politics in Kent over the last 2 or 3 years. Everything from MPs defecting to by-elections to general elections. So if some people have election fatigue, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm really pleased that we're going to be having the opportunity to put forward the alternatives that we would have as a Labour Party for this country and our county.
But But it really isn't long. It's only 6 weeks out until to the election on the 8th of June. She's announced that she'll be going for. What kind of state's the party in? Are you really in a position to be going at a general election? Is your leader electable?
Look, I've got every confidence in Jeremy Corbyn. I will be there working every day between now and June the 8th to make him our next Prime Minister.
But is that enough, really, to be just saying, well, we'll work really hard to try and make it happen? Can it actually happen?
Well, it's about the policies, and I think the thing to remember, and this is really important, a general election isn't a single issue referendum as we saw last June. Clearly, the different views on the European Union and what happens next will be part of the debate over the next 7 weeks, no doubt about it. But actually, I've been out across Kent. We've got other elections coming up over the next period before that in early May. And I've been speaking to residents there. And what I've heard, actually, people aren't talking about leaders of parties or Brexit particularly. They're talking about bread and butter issues like education, like health, like the state of our roads, like the state of local government finances. Those are the issues which people are saying to me on the doorstep they want to see change on.
And just very, very quickly, in Kent, at the last election, we saw the Labour Party do pretty poorly, frankly, not even coming second in a lot of jurisdictions. What kind of impact can Labour make in Kent this time round?
Look, we've seen historically across Kent, when we have a Labour government, we have MPs here in Kent. That's really critical. The only way Jeremy Corbyn will be elected as our Prime Minister is if we're winning in places like Medway, Thanet, Dover, Gravesham and Dartford. We've got to win in those places to form the next government.
For sitting MPs, the last 2 years have been pretty much non-stop. After the general election, we had leadership changes in all parties, a new Prime Minister came into number 10, we had the referendum of our membership of the EU last year, and now they have to fight for their seats yet again. We caught up with prominent Leave MPs Gordon Henderson, Gareth Johnson and Craig McKinley to see what they think their biggest challenge is going to be. Why was it a good decision not to have a snap election last year, and now suddenly is a good decision?
Well, I think that
Theresa May's been inconsistent on this.
I wouldn't say inconsistent. I think that realistic and realism has crept in. It's been quite obvious for those of us that have been sitting here listening to what's happening on the opposite side of the argument for Brexit, and as you well know, I'm a staunch Brexiteer, and have been before it was even announced. And it's quite apparent that there are forces over in that palace of Westminster who are determined, whether it's up that end or this end, determined to one way or another scupper Brexit, and that's not what the British people voted for. So I think
you say British people didn't vote for it, but actually the result of the referendum was fairly even, wasn't it? 48-52.
Well, there are many members of Parliament over there that would dearly love to have had 52% of the vote to get themselves elected, and it behoves them to criticise the percentage at this stage. I didn't get 52, I only got just almost 50% of the vote. So I think 52% compared to 48% is pretty emphatic nationally, but then you've got to bear in mind, if you factor out from that Scotland, for instance, and London, which voted overwhelmingly to remain, the vast majority of of England and Wales actually voted to actually leave the EU. As in my constituency, the result was 62% to leave, 38% to remain.
It sounds as if this election is going to be dominated by a rerun of the Brexit argument to me. Are you worried that other issues are not going to get looked at, like the state of the NHS in Kent?
I am.
The bad train service.
I'm not worried, because I think actually we got 6 and a bit weeks to go. I can't imagine that for 6 and a bit weeks politicians are going to only be able to get away with talking about Brexit.
You might be in a small minority there.
I think that there will be other issues coming up. But actually, even if it is about Brexit, it is about Brexit. It's about, in many ways, it's about who do we trust to actually deliver that vote, whether or not you think it was a decisive vote that happened on June 23rd last year.
Now the Conservatives have got control of all seats in Kent, with Labour in disarray, UKIP in meltdown. You could sit at home, couldn't you, put your feet up and still win?
Listen, I'm not complacent at all. I stood in my seat back in 2005 when you may recall on the first count I won by 118 votes. I then lost those by 79 votes, and that was not that long ago. Before that, it was a Labour seat since the time it was actually formed, when it was created, when it was Sitting Bull in Sheppey was created. So to have been able to turn round a Labour majority of over 3,000 and turn that into a 12,000 majority tells me one thing, and that is that the electors are very fickle, and if I can create that majority, I can lose that majority. So I will be going into this election not complacent at all, and I'll be working very hard to, if I'm selected, because obviously
I'm sure you're going to be selected.
You know, once again, you can never be complacent. As a sitting MP, I'm entitled to put my name forward, and I will be putting my name forward for selection.
Now, we all value democracy and having the right to vote, but voters have been asked to turn out quite a few times in the last 2 years. Any sense that voter fatigue is creeping in, people fed up with it?
Well, we've had, look, I've been in politics a long time, and particularly coming from Swale, where traditionally, historically, we always had council elections in thirds. So I've been through my political career having an election every year. So we've got used to it in our area of having elections.
You know the point I'm making.
The point you're making is quite and I
we've got
accept
county elections in.
We've got county elections. We have in May. Look. I wish we hadn't had this. I wish we hadn't had to call this election. I'm a firm believer in the fixed-term parliaments, and that we should have had an election in 2020. And so my preference would have been not to have an election. But looking at it logically, I do think that now's the time for us to ensure that as we move into the negotiations for Brexit, that we give the Prime Minister get an endorsement from the British public for what the Prime Minister and her team are going to be doing.
Gareth, I've heard this phrase "strong mandate" endless times today. You're speaking from some crib sheet you've been given.
I think that is the key. I mean, Theresa May does want that mandate. She wants to be able to go to Brussels and actually around the world, able to say, look, she's got not just Parliament behind her, but she's also got the British people behind her, and that gives her a very strong position. It's essential now that we are far more internationalist as a country. I think for too long, frankly, we've concentrated all our efforts in the European Union. 93% of the population is outside the EU, so we need to look at them too.
Those international markets have been there, though, haven't they? It's not as if they just suddenly cropped up.
They have, but of course the EU has to directly trade with those countries. We are, if you like, restricted by the trade deals that the EU has negotiated with those countries. After Brexit, of course, we'll be free to directly arrange those contracts with international community. We are a very international country. We're still obviously going to be part of the G7, part of the G20, crucial member of NATO and the Commonwealth, and so therefore it's important that we actually look at the whole world. As the international community, if you like, is getting smaller, we need to adapt to that, and Brexit will enable that to happen.
Craig, this sounds like it's going to turn into an election almost like a second referendum on Brexit. Aren't domestic issues, which are of concern to a lot of people,
well, I mean, Brexit
going to get overshadowed?
Brexit is one thing. This is nothing to do with a referendum on Brexit. Nothing to do at all.
But the argument so far has been all right, we're calling it because we need a stronger hand.
That's one of the arguments. I mean, you've got a new Prime Minister 9 months ago. Many said, she didn't have the mandate. This will give her a mandate to have a new manifesto that will be different in some areas from the manifesto that we all fought on in 2015. There's going to be obviously a more powerful push towards grammar schools, which is very welcome in Kent. And then, there'll be other little bits that Theresa May wants as her own personal stamp. So this is the opportunity for that. So it's not just about Brexit. It's important that I think the Prime Minister has a strong negotiating hand, so she can go to the capitals of Europe and say, I've just been re-elected. And I'm assuming that's going to be the outcome. The polls are suggesting that. I've just been re-elected. I've got a very strong mandate from Westminster. I'm here to do a very strong and positive deal for yourselves and for us. And I think the election is the right way of doing that. Things have changed over the last couple of years. Different Prime Minister, Brexit vote. We're in a new Britain, a global Britain, and I'm really looking forward to be part of it.
Gareth, although the Brexiteers won the referendum, it was quite close. It wasn't as if it was 70-30. Are you convinced they're getting a fair share of the debate, as it were? It's all been about leaving the EU, but there are lots of people who feel we made the wrong decision in that referendum.
Brexit must happen. In Dartford, for example, 2/3 of people voted to leave the European Union, but Brexit needs to be for everybody. We need to ensure that we get the right deal for Britain, and that's in everybody's interest. However you voted during that referendum, we need to get a deal that's positive for Britain It enables us to go forward as an international trader with the rest of the world.
It looks as though you're in a fairly solid position in Kent. All the polls and the bookmakers and lots of you are sitting on fairly sizable majorities. Is there anything that's going to derail the Conservative?
Let me be absolutely clear about it. None of us here are taking anything for granted. This election is not in the bag, that's for certain. We know that politics is a precarious business. Neither Craig or I are going to take anything for granted. We're going to be working our socks off to put our message across to the people in our constituencies why they should back us, as individuals, and also why they should back Theresa May over Jeremy Corbyn.
Are you looking forward to crossing swords with Nigel Farage again?
Well, don't know if he's going to stand yet. I can't see why he should, but if he does, well, I beat him last time, absolutely fine. I mean, I've been saying for a long time, the key feature, the USP of UKIP has been delivered. We've had the Brexit vote, we've delivered Article 50, we're on our way out of the European Union.
Sounds like you're the last real passing the last rights over a political movement,
no, not
which
at all.
is still there.
I think they should be very proud of what they've achieved. They've achieved what they set out to do, and I think it's time for many UKIP voters to come home, whether that's to the Labour Party or to the Conservative Party.
I have to ask you, Craig, are you worried about the CPS investigations?
No, well, I know I've done nothing wrong, and I acted properly and honestly throughout that campaign, so no, not concerned at all.
And Labour are in a bit of turmoil themselves, the Liberal Democrats starting from a modest base. See any threat from anywhere at all?
Well, as I say, we're not taking anything for granted. We're going to go out there and campaign for every single vote. That's absolutely essential. There is no way in the world that we are going to be complacent about this election. In fact, as we know, in every general election we have to work hard. Dartford is actually Britain's longest lasting bellwether seat, having returned a member of the governing party every election since 1964. If we lose in Dartford, the Conservatives lose in Dartford, Jeremy Corbyn will be our Prime Minister, and that is a thought that makes me shudder.
Well, you particularly have got a fairly healthy majority. Yours is around 2,000.
2,800, yeah.
I mean, for people like you, Gareth, you could probably sit at home, put your feet up and drink lemonade.
that won't be happening, I can assure you. As I say, I can't emphasise enough that we will be working our socks off, we will be working extremely hard to go out there and make the case. We talked about mandates before, but it's essential that we have a strong mandate both in our constituencies and nationally, so that Theresa May can take that forward with the negotiations over Brexit. This is what this general election in many ways is about. It's ensuring that she has the authority to speak on behalf of the United Kingdom.
We've heard from politicians in and out of Westminster, but what do voters think of another trip to the polling station? We went to Rochester High Street to find out.
Very surprised. I thought the Prime Minister would wait some time to let the dust settle.
And I just think Labour are in turmoil at the moment, and so people will vote Tories.
It's a very positive step because of the uncertainty in Parliament at the moment, where the Scottish Nasty Party, Labour and the Liberals are really trying to scupper the Brexit deal.
I think she's got some good policies. I think that she's the best leadership we've got at the minute. And I think that she will get the best deal that she can.
It'll give her more sort of status, for being, the Prime Minister, because she wasn't elected, was she, in the first place?
Brexit isn't happening how people want Brexit to happen. It's becoming a really hard Brexit. We need to sort of more have a referendum on that than who should be in power.
Well, that's it for Paul on Politics. I'm off to Trump Towers to track down Nigel Farage to see if he's got bigger fish to fry. Remember, you can catch up on all the latest political news in Kent by logging on to KentOnline.co.uk or listening to KMFM or following me on Twitter @Paul on Politics. Thanks for watching. See you soon.